Marina was exhausted. Her arms ached as she held up Valentina, her millionaire boss's 8-year-old daughter. The girl, confined to a wheelchair for 2 years after the terrible accident that had also taken her mother, was trying to take her first steps again. Sweat dripped down Marina's forehead as she encouraged the little one. "Come on, Val, you can do it. Just one more little step," Marina whispered affectionately, ignoring the pain in her own back. Her heart ached seeing the girl's effort, her face red with concentration. Valentina bit her lip, determined. "It hurts, Auntie Marie, but I want to walk again." Marina knew she shouldn't be doing this. The expensive physical therapist Mr. Thompson hired had given up on the case, saying Valentina would never walk again. The mansion's housekeeper, Susan, had already warned her several times that she would be fired if she continued with these secret sessions of physical therapy. After all, she was just the cleaner, hired to clean the enormous mansion, not to care for the Thompson heiress. But Marina couldn't ignore Valentina's sad eyes every time she saw her around the house. Since she'd started working there 6 months ago, she had felt an immediate connection with the girl, who was left to the care of nannies and staff, while her father traveled the world closing million-dollar deals. "Auntie Marie, is Dad coming home today?" Valentina asked, taking another shaky step. Marina felt a knot in her stomach. Daniel Thompson, the successful and widowed entrepreneur, was returning after 3 months in Europe. She had never spoken to him directly, only received instructions from the housekeeper when she was hired. "Yes, sweetie. That's why we have to keep our secret. Remember, no one can know we're practicing your steps." What Marina didn't know was that, at that very moment, Daniel Thompson had already arrived. His driver had dropped him at the side gate, as he wanted it to be a surprise. 2 months ahead of schedule, he had cancelled all his appointments. The lonely nights in luxury hotels had become unbearable. The truth he barely admitted to himself was that he missed home. He missed his daughter. Daniel walked silently through the garden, hearing voices coming from the living room. He approached the glass door and froze at the scene before him. His daughter, whom the doctors had said would never walk again, was on her feet, taking hesitant steps, supported by a young woman he didn't recognize. "That's it, Val. You're the bravest girl I've ever met," the stranger was saying, tears in her eyes. Daniel's heart raced. Who was this woman? Why hadn't anyone told him Valentina was making progress? And why was his daughter smiling in a way he hadn't seen since before the accident? Susan, the housekeeper, appeared in the hallway and nearly dropped the tray she was carrying when she saw Daniel. "Mr. Thompson, we weren't expecting you today," she exclaimed in a panic. Marina turned quickly, startled, and her eyes met Daniel's for the first time. Time seemed to stop. She felt her blood run cold. She would be fired on the spot. She would lose the job she so desperately needed to pay for her sick mother's treatment. Daniel couldn't look away from the young woman with green eyes and gentle hands who held his daughter with such care. Something stirred inside him, a mixture of gratitude, confusion, and something else he couldn't name. "Daddy!" Valentina cried out with a radiant smile. "Look what I can do now." "Auntie Marie is teaching me to walk again," Susan quickly intervened. "Mr. Thompson, I can explain. This employee is overstepping her duties. I've warned her several times." Daniel raised a hand, silencing the housekeeper. His eyes were fixed on the scene before him, his daughter on her feet, smiling, alive in a way he hadn't seen in years, and this unknown young woman, in simple clothes and with an apprehensive look, who had achieved what expensive doctors had deemed impossible. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Marina Miller, sir. I'm the cleaner. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have—" Marina trembled inwardly. Her thoughts were racing. She needed this job. Her mother depended on the expensive medication she could only afford thanks to the salary she earned at the mansion. Now everything was ruined because of her recklessness. Daniel took 2 steps forward, his teary eyes fixed on his daughter, who remained standing, supported in Marina's arms. He hadn't seen Valentina even try to stand since that fateful day of the accident. The doctors had been categorical. The spinal injury was too severe. She would never walk again. "How long have you been doing this?" he asked, his voice a mix of emotion and disbelief. 3 months, sir," Marina replied, swallowing hard. "I started with small exercises when I noticed she had some sensation in her legs. Valentina told me she sometimes felt tingling, but nobody believed her." Susan huffed indignantly. "Mr. Thompson, this girl has no qualifications whatsoever. She's toying with the child's hopes. It's cruel and irresponsible, not to mention she should be cleaning the house, not meddling in affairs that are none of her business." Daniel completely ignored the housekeeper. His eyes couldn't leave his daughter, who now took another trembling step, her face lit up with a smile he thought he would never see again. "Daddy, look, I'm walking!" Valentina exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. "Auntie Mary said I'll be able to walk by myself one day. She believed me when I said I could feel my legs." Daniel felt his heart clench. How many times had his daughter tried to tell him this? How many times had he, too busy with his business, delegated her care to professionals who simply followed the initial diagnosis without question? "Why did you do it?" he asked Marina directly, his voice softer now. "Why did you take such a risk?" Marina hesitated, feeling Susan's furious gaze on her, but seeing the light in Valentina's eyes, she answered truthfully, "Because she asked me to, sir, because I saw hope in her eyes, and because no one deserves to have their dreams given up on." What Marina didn't say was how her heart broke every time she saw the girl looking out the window, watching other children play in the garden. She didn't tell him about the nights she spent researching physical therapy exercises on the internet, using her old phone, and the unstable connection in the small room she shared with her sick mother. Susan noticed the look of admiration Daniel gave the cleaner and felt a wave of jealousy and rage. For years, she had run this house, taking care of everything while her boss traveled. She was the one who should be receiving that look of gratitude, not some random cleaner who barely knew how to dress properly. "Mr. Thompson," Susan interrupted in a syrupy voice, "Dr. Evans, the physical therapist you hired, was very clear about Valentina's condition. This game could be causing irreversible damage. I suggest we call the doctor immediately to assess what this person has done to your daughter." Daniel finally tore his gaze from Marina and Valentina to face the housekeeper. There was something in her tone he had never noticed before, a calculating coldness that deeply unsettled him. "Susan, please bring Valentina a glass of water and call Dr. Evans. I want her here today." Marina's stomach sank. This was it. The doctor would come, say she was harming the girl, and she would be fired on the spot. How would she pay for her mother's treatment? How would they survive? What she didn't know was that Daniel, as he watched the care with which she helped Valentina back into her wheelchair, was already making a decision that would forever change the destiny of everyone in that room. And Susan, as she left to make the calls, was already plotting how to get rid of this intruder before she further threatened her privileged position in the Thompson mansion. Daniel watched intently as Marina helped Valentina sit back down in her wheelchair. There was a delicacy in her movements, a genuine care he hadn't seen in the expensive professionals he'd hired over the years. The young cleaner whispered words of encouragement in the girl's ear, who smiled, proud of her accomplishments. "You were amazing today. Val, stronger every day." Marina stroked the child's hair, ignoring the millionaire's intimidating presence. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. How long had it been since he'd seen his daughter smile like that? Since the accident that took his wife, Valentina had closed herself off in a world of silence and sadness, and he, unable to cope with his own pain, had thrown himself into his work, traveling constantly, leaving his daughter in the care of well-paid strangers. "Miss Miller," he said finally, "I'd like to speak with you privately." Marina's face paled. She nervously wrung her hands on the simple apron she wore over her cleaner's uniform. "Daddy, don't be mad at Auntie Marie," Valentina pleaded, grabbing the young woman's hand. "It was my idea. I asked her to help me." Daniel knelt beside his daughter's chair, touching her face gently. "I'm not going to be mad at anyone, Princess. I just need to understand what's going on." Just then Susan returned to the room, her face a mask of false concern. "Dr. Evans will be here in an hour, Mr. Thompson." She was quite concerned when she heard what happened. Daniel noticed the faint, satisfied smile on the housekeeper's lips. Something about her reaction bothered him deeply. "Valentina, dear," Susan said in her syrupy voice, "how about you go to your room and rest for a bit? You must be exhausted from these improper exercises." "I'm not tired," the girl protested. "I want to stay with Auntie Marie." "Valentina," Daniel intervened in a firm but gentle voice, "I need to speak with Miss Miller now. I promise it won't take long. Then the three of us can talk, okay?" Reluctantly, the girl agreed. Susan rushed to push the wheelchair, casting a triumphant glance at Marina. In her mind, the housekeeper was already planning how to convince the physical therapist to declare the sessions dangerous and irresponsible. It would be the end of this intruder. "Sir, I can explain." Marina began as soon as they were alone, her voice trembling. Daniel gestured to the sofa. "Please have a seat." Marina complied, perching on the edge of the luxurious furniture, feeling completely out of place. Her hands, calloused from hard work, contrasted with the fine fabric of the imported sofa. "How did you find out my daughter had sensation in her legs?" Daniel asked, sitting across from her. Marina took a deep breath. "It was by accident, sir. 3 months ago, I was cleaning the living room when Valentina dropped a book. I bent down to pick it up and accidentally brushed against her leg. She said, 'Ow!' At first, I thought I'd imagined it, but then I asked if she had felt something. She told me she sometimes felt tingling, but nobody believed her." Daniel felt a pang of guilt. How many times had his daughter tried to tell him this during his brief visits or rushed video calls? "And what did you do?" he asked, genuinely interested. "I started researching online. My mother had a stroke 2 years ago, and I did at-home physical therapy with her because we couldn't afford a professional. I learned some basic exercises." Marina hesitated. "I know I'm not qualified, sir, but when I saw the hope in Valentina's eyes, I couldn't ignore it." Daniel observed the simple young woman before him. She couldn't be more than 20-something, but there was a determination in her green eyes that impressed him. "Why do you care so much?" he asked, his voice softer. Marina hadn't expected that question. Her eyes filled with tears that she tried to hide. "Because I know what it's like to be given up on, sir. The doctors gave up on my mom too. They said she would never speak properly again, never walk again. Today she speaks, walks with a cane, and tends to our small garden." She wiped away a stubborn tear. "Valentina reminds me of her, that same determination in her eyes." Something broke inside Daniel. While he was building empires around the world, he had failed the most important person in his life. He had outsourced the love, hope, and care his daughter deserved. Dr. Evans, the physical therapist I hired, said it was impossible, that the injury was irreversible, he murmured, more to himself than to Marina. "With all due respect, sir, impossible is a very strong word. Maybe improbable, maybe difficult, but impossible." Marina shook her head. "Valentina has willpower, and sometimes that's all we need to challenge the impossible." From the hallway, Susan watched the scene, her face contorted with rage. That insignificant cleaner was manipulating her boss with her sob story. Years of building her position in this house, years of being Daniel Thompson's trusted right hand, and now this nobody was threatening it all. "I won't allow it," she whispered to herself, stepping away to make an important phone call. She knew people who could investigate Marina Miller's past. Everyone had secrets, and she would find hers. In the living room, Daniel was making a decision that would change the course of many lives. "Marina, I want to propose something. I don't know if what you're doing with Valentina will work in the long run, but I saw my daughter smile today like she hasn't smiled in years. I saw hope in her eyes." He paused. "I would like you to continue the exercises, but officially, I'm hiring you as Valentina's therapeutic companion." Marina's eyes widened in disbelief. "But sir, I have no training." You have something more important. You believed when no one else did, and that, Marina, is something you can't learn in any university." What Daniel didn't say was how those green eyes had awakened something inside him that he thought had died since the accident that took his wife, a sense of warmth, of possibility, of life beyond grief and work. What neither of them knew was that Dr. Evans, on her way to the mansion, had already received a call from Susan, painting Marina as a dangerous opportunist who was putting Valentina's life at risk, and that the housekeeper, at that very moment, was searching Marina's room for anything she could use against her. The battle for Daniel's trust and Valentina's future was just beginning. And Marina, with her pure heart and calloused hands, had no idea of the forces moving against her in that mansion of luxury and secrets. Dr. Evans arrived at the mansion with a stern expression, tall, elegant, and with an unquestionable air of authority. She was considered one of the best physical therapists in the country. She was also a personal friend of Susan's, something Daniel was completely unaware of. "Daniel, we need to speak privately," she said after the formal greetings, casting a disapproving glance at Marina, who stood beside Valentina. "Anything that needs to be said can be said in front of Marina," Daniel replied with surprising firmness. "She's now part of Valentina's care team." The doctor raised her perfectly shaped eyebrows. "I beg your pardon. This young woman has no qualifications. What is going on here?" Valentina, sitting in her wheelchair, grabbed Marina's hand. "Auntie Marie is helping me walk again. Doctor, look." Before anyone could stop her, the girl moved to stand up. Marina quickly supported her, helping her to her feet, with faltering but determined steps. Valentina took 3 steps while leaning on Marina's arms. Dr. Evans's face went pale. "That's impossible," she murmured, genuinely shocked. "Apparently not," Daniel replied, unable to hide the pride in his voice. "My daughter is progressing. Something you said would never happen." The doctor quickly composed herself. "Daniel, I understand your excitement, but this could be extremely dangerous. Improper movements could cause permanent damage, worsening her condition. We need to run tests, assess what's really happening." Marina remained silent, but her heart was pounding. She knew she couldn't argue with the doctor's technical knowledge, but she also knew what she saw with her own eyes. Valentina was getting better every day. "We will do all the necessary tests," Daniel agreed, "but Marina will continue with the exercises under proper supervision, including yours. If you're willing to reconsider your diagnosis." Dr. Evans pressed her lips together, annoyed. Her gaze briefly met Susan's, who was watching from the doorway. A silent agreement passed between them. "Of course, Daniel. I have always been committed to Valentina's well-being. I can supervise Miss Miller's methods and ensure they are safe." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "We can start tomorrow with a full battery of tests." Later, after the doctor had left, Susan found Marina in the hallway. The housekeeper blocked her path, her face twisted into a mask of false concern. "Marina, dear, we need to talk about your new position." Her voice was sweet as poisoned honey. "You know, I've worked for Mr. Thompson for 15 years. I know when he's, let's say, emotionally vulnerable." Marina faced the housekeeper, sensing the danger in her words. "What do you mean?" "Susan, just that I've seen many girls like you pass through this house, young, pretty, with touching stories." Susan moved closer, lowering her voice. "All of them thinking they could replace the late Mrs. Thompson. None of them lasted very long." Marina felt her face burn. "It's nothing like that. I'm just helping Valentina." Of course." Susan's smile was icy. Just a friendly piece of advice. Don't confuse gratitude with something more. Daniel may be impressed now, but once the novelty wears off, she let the sentence hang in the air, shrugging. Well, I'm sure your sick little mother would be devastated if you lost this very convenient job. Marina's blood ran cold. How did Susan know about her mother? She had never mentioned her personal situation to anyone but Daniel, and even then, only superficially. How did you? Oh, darling, in this house. The walls have ears. Susan smiled, turning away. I'm just trying to protect you from disappointment. After all, we're all one big family here, aren't we? Marina stood frozen in the hallway, feeling the weight of the veiled threat. What did Susan know about her? What else could she find out? Meanwhile, in his study, Daniel was on the phone with his private investigator. Something about Dr. Evans' reaction had deeply bothered him. Years of tough negotiations had sharpened his instincts for detecting lies and half-truths. I want everything on Dr. Patricia Evans. Education, professional history, personal connections, and on Marina Miller. Background, family, financial situation. And yes, with absolute discretion. Daniel hung up, feeling a pang of guilt for investigating Marina. But he had to be sure. His daughter was involved, and he wouldn't make the mistake of trusting blindly again. The next morning, Marina arrived earlier than usual. She had spent a sleepless night worrying about Susan's veiled threats. As she entered the kitchen for a coffee before starting her day, she found the cook, Zelia, an elderly woman who had worked at the mansion for decades. "Child, be careful," the old woman whispered, looking around to make sure they were alone. "Susan is furious with you. I heard her on the phone last night, saying she was going to solve the problem of the meddling cleaner." Marina felt a chill. "Zelia, I'm just trying to help Valentina." "I know, dear. Everyone in this house knows that girl has been better since you arrived. But Susan, she's controlled everything here for years. The boss is never here. He trusts her with everything." The woman squeezed Marina's hand. "And she and the doctor are old friends. Very old friends. If you catch my meaning." Before Marina could process that information, she heard Valentina calling for her. She hurried to the girl's room, finding her already dressed and eager. "Auntie Marie! Dad said we're going to do exercises together today. He's going to watch our session." Marina's heart raced. Daniel would be watching. The pressure was immense. What if she did something wrong? What if Valentina couldn't show the same progress? "That's wonderful." "Val," she managed to reply, hiding her nervousness. What Marina didn't know was that, at that exact moment, Susan was receiving a confidential package. Inside, information about Marina's past that the housekeeper intended to use to destroy her completely. "Finally," Susan muttered, a cruel smile forming on her lips as she read the contents of the envelope. "Let's see how long you last now, Marina Miller." In the improvised physical therapy room, Daniel watched every one of Marina's movements with his daughter intently. There was something mesmerizing about the gentleness with which she treated Valentina, her infinite patience, the way she celebrated every small bit of progress. "You're a natural at this," he commented, impressed. "Where did you learn these techniques?" Marina blushed slightly. "I learned taking care of my mother, like I said. And also, well, I did one semester of physical therapy at the state college before I had to drop out to work." Daniel raised his eyebrows, surprised. "You never mentioned that." "I didn't think it was relevant. After all, I didn't graduate. I had to leave when my mother got sick." Marina helped Valentina sit down. "I needed to work full-time to pay the bills." Something tightened in Daniel's chest. How many dreams interrupted by necessity? How many talents wasted for lack of opportunity? The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Evans, accompanied by Susan. The housekeeper wore an enigmatic smile and held an envelope in her hand. "Daniel, we need to talk," Susan said with false concern. "In private, it's about Miss Miller." The look she gave Marina was loaded with triumph. The game was just beginning, and Susan was about to play her first card. Daniel looked from Susan to Marina. Noticing the panic in the young woman's eyes, something about the situation bothered him deeply. "Any matter concerning Marina can be discussed in her presence," he replied firmly. "I have no secrets in my home." Susan hesitated, clearly annoyed. This wasn't how she had planned it. Dr. Evans quickly intervened. "Daniel, this is about safety concerns related to Valentina's health. Perhaps it would be better to talk in your study." Valentina, sensing the tension in the air, grabbed Marina's hand. "I don't want Auntie Mari to leave, Daddy. Promise she won't leave." Daniel knelt beside his daughter. "No one is leaving, Princess. I'm just going to talk with Susan and Dr. Evans for a few minutes. Marina will stay with you, okay?" Reluctantly, the girl agreed. Daniel stood up, giving Marina a brief look. "We'll continue the exercises in half an hour." In the study, Susan could barely contain her excitement to reveal what she had discovered. As soon as the door closed, she handed the envelope to Daniel. "Sir, I know you'll thank me for this. I did some digging into this. Marina's past." Her tone was that of someone revealing a grand conspiracy. "What I found is alarming." Daniel took the envelope, but didn't open it immediately. "You investigated one of my employees without my authorization." Susan, the housekeeper, blinked, confused by his reaction. "Sir, I have always looked out for the security of this house. This girl appeared out of nowhere, gained Valentina's trust, and now yours. It was my duty to check." "Your duty is to follow my instructions," Daniel cut in, his voice cold. "But since you've taken this initiative, what did you find that's so alarming?" Susan smiled, triumphant. Marina Miller was accused of theft at her previous job. She worked as a caregiver for an elderly woman who passed away. The family accused Marina of stealing valuable jewelry. Dr. Evans put on a grave expression. "Daniel, we can't take that risk. Someone with that history, alone with Valentina." Daniel opened the envelope and examined the documents in silence. After a few minutes that seemed like an eternity to Susan, he looked up. "Interesting. Do you have the result of the legal proceedings?" Susan frowned. "Well, not exactly, but the accusation was dropped." Daniel finished for her. "The elderly woman's family dropped the charges when they discovered their own son had sold the jewelry to pay off gambling debts. It's all right here in the documents you just handed me. Susan, Marina was fully exonerated." The housekeeper's face went pale. She hadn't read the full report. Only the first few pages that mentioned the accusation. "But, sir, even so, where there's smoke." "Where there's smoke, Susan, sometimes there are just people trying to start fires where there are none." Daniel put the documents in a drawer. "What intrigues me is your very personal interest in discrediting Marina." Dr. Evans interjected quickly. "Daniel, I understand your sympathy for the young woman, but as a doctor, I must insist that the exercises she's doing with Valentina are potentially dangerous. Without proper supervision." "You are supervising now, aren't you, Doctor?" Daniel interrupted her. "Or is there some reason you can't work together with Marina for my daughter's benefit?" The two women exchanged nervous glances. Daniel was not the absent, inattentive businessman they thought they knew. Something had changed. "Of course I can," the doctor replied, forcing a smile. "I'm only concerned with Valentina's well-being." "Excellent. Then let's return to the therapy room. I want to see my daughter continue to progress." Meanwhile, in the therapy room, Marina was trying to focus on the exercises with Valentina, but her heart was heavy. What could Susan have discovered? Was it about the theft accusation she had faced 2 years ago, that terrible lie that had nearly destroyed her reputation and her life? "Auntie Mari, are you sad?" Valentina asked, noticing her distraction. Marina forced a smile. "No, sweetie, just thinking about the next exercise." "Susan doesn't like you," the girl said with the typical frankness of children. "She told Dr. Evans you were an opportunist when she thought I wasn't listening." Marina's stomach sank. Valentina, sometimes adults say things when they're worried. Susan just wants to protect you and your father. But she's wrong about you. You're good, Auntie Mary. You make me believe I can walk again. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Before you came, I had given up. Nobody believed me when I said I could feel my legs sometimes. Marina hugged the child, feeling her own heart ache. Never give up, Val. Never. No matter what happens, promise me you'll keep trying. You'll help me, won't you? You won't leave. Before Marina could answer, the door opened. Daniel entered, followed by Susan and Dr. Evans. The housekeeper's face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line of contained anger. The doctor maintained a professional expression, but her eyes betrayed her irritation. "Let's continue the exercises," Daniel announced. "Dr. Evans will observe and make technical suggestions. Marina, please show me exactly what you've been doing with Valentina." Marina took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Under the doctor's critical gaze and Susan's venomous stare, she began to guide Valentina through the exercises they had developed together. To Dr. Evans's surprise, the movements were technically correct, perfectly adapted to Valentina's specific needs. They weren't amateurish or dangerous, but a well-thought-out sequence that was clearly yielding results. "Where did you learn this?" the doctor asked, unable to hide her surprise. "I did a semester of physical therapy before I had to drop out of college," Marina answered, focused on helping Valentina balance. "And I researched a lot after my mother had a stroke." Daniel watched everything attentively, noting Marina's professionalism and the evident emotional connection with his daughter, something none of the expensive specialists had managed to establish. At the end of the session, Valentina was exhausted but radiant. She had managed to take 5 consecutive steps, a personal record. "Daddy, did you see? 5 steps. Last week it was only 3. Daniel felt his eyes well up. "I saw, Princess. I'm so proud of you. Auntie Mari says I'll soon be able to walk with crutches, and then, who knows, on my own." Dr. Evans cleared her throat. We shouldn't create unrealistic expectations, Valentina. The progress is remarkable, but nothing is impossible when we have determination, right?" Daniel finished, looking directly at Marina. That night, after Valentina had fallen asleep, Marina was summoned to Daniel's study. Her heart pounded as she walked down the hall. Susan watched her from a distance, her eyes narrowed with rage. "You haven't won yet," the housekeeper whispered as Marina passed. "This is just the beginning." In the study, Daniel was standing by the window, contemplating the moonlit garden. He turned as Marina entered, gesturing for her to sit. "Marina, I know about the theft accusation," he said without preamble. "I also know you were exonerated." The young woman paled. "Sir, I can explain." "You don't have to. I read the full report. I know it was a false accusation and that you suffered a great deal because of it." Daniel sat across from her. "What interests me is the present, what you are doing for my daughter." Marina breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you for trusting me." "I'm not finished," he continued. "I want to make you a proposal. I would like you to go back to school for physical therapy. I will pay for your education in full." Marina's eyes widened in shock. "What? But why?" "Because you have a gift, and because my daughter deserves the best," Daniel smiled faintly. "You can continue working here, part-time, while you study. When you graduate, you will have a guaranteed position as Valentina's official physical therapist, if you so choose." Tears streamed down Marina's face. It was her dream, coming back to life when she least expected it. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes, for Valentina." "For yourself?" Daniel hesitated, then added, "and maybe for me, too." The look they exchanged was charged with unspoken possibilities. Possibilities that Susan, listening from behind the door, swore to destroy at any cost. In the following weeks, the Thompson mansion underwent a quiet transformation. Daniel, for the first time in years, began working from home 3 days a week. His international meetings, once a priority, were now rescheduled so he could attend Valentina's physical therapy sessions. Marina began her studies at the physical therapy college, dividing her time between classes, work at the mansion, and caring for her mother. The routine was exhausting, but her eyes shone with renewed determination. Every new piece of knowledge she acquired was immediately applied to Valentina's exercises, and the girl continued to progress in surprising ways. Dr. Evans, disgruntled, had no choice but to acknowledge the girl's progress. New tests showed a partial recovery of sensation in her legs, something she had declared impossible. Her professional reputation was at stake, and she chose to change her strategy, now trying to take credit for the miracle that was happening. The initial exercises I prescribed must have stimulated the nerve endings, she declared during a consultation, completely ignoring Marina's work. It's a rare case, but not unheard of in medical literature. Daniel just smiled politely, not confronting her. He knew the truth, and that was what mattered. Susan, on the other hand, had not given up on her plans. The housekeeper watched with growing hatred the budding closeness between Daniel and Marina, the glances exchanged during dinner, the long conversations in the study, the shared laughter during Valentina's sessions. All of it fueled her resentment. "She's taking advantage of the situation," Susan muttered to Dr. Evans during one of their nightly phone calls, "using the girl to get to the father, and he, blind with gratitude, doesn't see the scam." "We need to be patient," the doctor replied. "We'll find something on her. Everyone has secrets." What they didn't know was that Daniel had installed a new security system in the mansion, with cameras and recorders in all the common areas. A precaution he had taken not only for Valentina's safety, but also because his business instincts told him something wasn't right with his housekeeper's loyalty. One particularly significant afternoon, Valentina managed to take 10 consecutive steps, supported only by light crutches, without any physical help from Marina. The therapy room erupted in applause. Daniel, Marina, and even Zelia, the cook who had become a silent ally, celebrated the extraordinary achievement. "I did it, Daddy, I did it!" Valentina shouted, her face illuminated by a joy Daniel hadn't seen since before the accident. He hugged his daughter carefully, tears streaming freely down his face. "You're amazing, my princess. Amazing." When he looked up, his gaze met Marina's, who was also crying with emotion. In that moment, something passed between them. A silent understanding, a connection that went beyond gratitude or professional admiration. Susan, watching from the doorway, felt her stomach churn with hatred. That look, it was the same one Daniel used to give his late wife. The housekeeper hurried away, her mind buzzing with plans for revenge. That night, after Valentina had fallen asleep, exhausted but happy, Marina found Daniel in the garden. She had stayed late to organize the therapy room and was surprised to see him sitting alone on the bench under the magnolia tree. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," she said, preparing to leave. "Stay," he asked, patting the space beside him. "Please." Marina hesitated, aware that this moment crossed the professional boundaries she tried to maintain. But something in Daniel's eyes made her sit down. "Valentina is sleeping like an angel," she commented, breaking the silence. "Today was a great day." Daniel nodded, looking up at the stars. "You know, after the accident, the doctors told me to accept reality, that my daughter would never walk again, that I should focus on giving her a comfortable life within her new limitations." He shook his head, and I accepted it. Like a coward, I accepted it. "Don't say that," Marina protested softly. "You were following medical advice, trying to protect her from false hope." "No, I was protecting myself." Daniel turned to face her. "After Clara died in the accident, I couldn't look at Valentina without feeling guilty. She looked so much like her mother, and I was driving that night. I should have protected my family." Marina's heart ached. It was the first time Daniel had spoken openly about the accident. "It wasn't your fault," she said firmly. Accidents happen, Daniel. No one can predict or control everything. But we can choose how we react afterwards. He took her hand. An unexpected gesture that made Marina's heart race. I chose to run away. I dove into work, traveled the world, left my daughter in the care of strangers. Until you showed up and showed me how much I was missing. Marina didn't know what to say. Daniel's proximity, the warmth of his hand on hers, the intensity of his gaze, it all left her speechless. You saved my daughter, Marina. And in a way, you saved me too. What happened next seemed as inevitable as the sunrise. Daniel leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted to. But Marina didn't pull back. Their lips met in a soft, hesitant kiss, charged with emotions that had been held back for so long. What neither of them noticed was Susan's silhouette in the second-floor window, watching everything with a cruel smile on her lips. She finally had the weapon she needed. The next morning, Marina arrived at the mansion feeling both euphoric and terrified. The kiss from the night before had changed everything, crossing lines she had promised herself she would never cross. This wasn't how she had planned her life, getting involved with her boss, a man from a world completely different from her own. Upon entering the kitchen, she found Zelia with a worried expression. "Child, be careful," the cook whispered. "Susan has a strange gleam in her eye today. She and the doctor were whispering on the phone early this morning. It's not good." Marina appreciated the warning, but her heart was already heavy with her own doubts. She needed to talk to Daniel, to clarify that the kiss had been a mistake, that they needed to maintain a strictly professional relationship for Valentina's sake. But when she arrived at the therapy room for the morning session, she found only Valentina and Dr. Evans. "But where's your father?" Marina asked, trying to sound casual. "He had an emergency meeting," the doctor replied with a cold smile. "He asked me to supervise today's session." Something in the doctor's tone put Marina on alert. Throughout the session, Dr. Evans watched every movement with a critical eye, constantly taking notes and occasionally interrupting to correct techniques that needed no correction. At the end, when Valentina was taken for her bath, the doctor confronted Marina directly. "I know what's going on here," she said, her tone falsely cordial. An unqualified cleaner, suddenly winning the trust of a vulnerable, wealthy man. "It's quite the fairy tale, isn't it?" Marina maintained her composure. "I'm just doing my job, Doctor. Valentina's well-being is my only concern." "Of course it is." The doctor smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And that's why you were kissing her father in the garden last night, out of professional concern." Marina felt the blood drain from her face. How did she know? "Don't worry," Dr. Evans continued, gathering her things. "Your secret is safe with me. For now." The veiled threat hung in the air long after the doctor left. Marina remained in the room, trying to calm her racing heart. It was all falling apart. Everything she had built with so much effort, Daniel's trust, Valentina's progress, her future as a physical therapist, was all at risk because of one moment of weakness. What she didn't know was that, at that very moment, Daniel was in his corporate office, watching a video that had been sent anonymously to his email, a video showing Susan and Dr. Evans in an intimate conversation, planning in detail how to get rid of the intruder and open the boss's eyes to the scam he's falling for. Daniel's face hardened with every word he heard. Years of trust betrayed, years of being manipulated in his own home, and worst of all, his daughter being used as a pawn in this sordid game. When the video ended, he picked up the phone and made 2 calls. The first was to his lawyer. The second was to a number he never thought he would use again. The afternoon fell over the Thompson mansion like a heavy shroud. Marina was finishing the exercises with Valentina, her heart torn between joy at the girl's progress and anguish over what had happened with Daniel. He hadn't returned for lunch, nor had he sent any message. The silence was deafening. "Auntie Marie, you're sad today," Valentina observed, ever perceptive. Is it because Daddy didn't come to see my exercises? Marina forced a smile. Of course not. Sweetie, your dad has a lot of important meetings, and look what you did today. 12 steps with the crutches. That's a record. The girl smiled, proud, but her eyes showed she wasn't entirely convinced. You know, Auntie Murray, before you came, Daddy was almost never home. Now he's here almost every day. It's because of you. Marina felt her face burn. Valentina, your dad is here for you, because he loves you more than anything. But he smiles when he looks at you, the same way he smiled in the pictures with Mommy. The girl spoke with the disarming simplicity of children. I like it when he smiles like that. Before Marina could respond, Susan entered the room, her face a mask of false cordiality. Valentina, dear, it's time for your snack, and then the English tutor will be here for your lesson. The girl made a face. I don't want a lesson today. I want to stay with Auntie Murray. Unfortunately, Miss Miller has other commitments now. Susan replied with an icy smile. Mr. Thompson has requested that she come to his corporate office immediately. Marina's stomach sank. Daniel wanted to see her at the office, not at home. That could only mean one thing. He regretted the kiss and wanted to fire her in a neutral environment away from Valentina. Did he say why? Marina asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He didn't give me any details, just asked that you go as soon as possible. The driver is waiting. Susan's smile widened, triumphant. Don't worry about Valentina. I'll take care of her personally. Marina looked at the girl, hesitant. Something in Susan's tone made her uneasy. I'll be back soon, Val, she promised, hugging the child. Keep practicing those breathing exercises I taught you. Okay. In the company's luxury car, Marina tried to control her anxiety. The driver, a man of few words, offered no additional information about the reason for the sudden summons. Through the window, she watched the city pass by, from the affluent neighborhoods where the mansion was located to the financial district where the imposing Thompson Enterprises building stood. It's over, she thought, fighting back tears. It was a mistake to let that kiss happen. Now I've lost everything. Upon arriving at the top floor of the building, she was greeted not by Daniel, but by an elegant woman who introduced herself as Dr. Helen Kramer. Miss Miller, please, come with me. Confused, Marina followed the woman to a conference room where, to her surprise, she found not only Daniel, but also a man in a suit who was introduced as Mr. Richard Mendez, the company's lawyer, and a middle-aged woman with a stern expression. Marina, thank you for coming, Daniel said, standing to greet her. His face was serious, but his eyes conveyed a silent message she couldn't decipher. Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Marina's heart was pounding. Was this a formal dismissal meeting? Why so many people? This is Dr. Helen Kramer, Daniel continued, gesturing to the elegant woman. She is the head of the neurology department at Central Hospital and a specialist in spinal cord injuries, like Valentina's. Marina blinked, confused. Why would a neurologist be present at her firing? And this, Daniel indicated the stern-faced woman, is Dr. Marion Fields, from the State Medical Board. A heavy silence fell over the room. Marina looked from one face to another, completely lost. Marina, Daniel finally spoke, his voice softer now. First of all, I want you to know that you are not here to be questioned or accused of anything. Quite the opposite. He nodded to the lawyer, who opened a folder and pushed some documents towards her. What I'm about to show you will be shocking. I just ask that you watch carefully. The lawyer turned on a projector, and a video began to play on the white wall of the room. Marina immediately recognized the voices. Susan and Dr. Evans, talking in what looked like the mansion's study. We need to get rid of her once and for all, Susan was saying in the video. Daniel is completely blind. Did you see the way he looks at that cleaner? It's pathetic. Calm down. "We have to be smart about this," Dr. Evans replied. "If we just accuse her, Daniel will defend her. We need to make it look like she's harming Valentina." "How?" "Simple. At the next appointment, I'll alter the test results. I'll say the girl is developing complications from the improper exercises, that the injury is worsening due to mechanical stress. But that's not true. The girl is clearly getting better. Daniel isn't a doctor. He'll believe me, not her, especially when I say the condition could become irreversible if we continue with this alternative therapy." The video continued, revealing a detailed plan to not only sabotage Marina's work, but also to plant false evidence that she was stealing items from the mansion. Marina watched in horror, her face pale with shock. When the video ended, a heavy silence filled the room. "This was recorded 3 days ago," Daniel explained. "My security system was recently updated. All common areas of the house are under surveillance." I don't know what to say," Marina murmured, still stunned. "You don't have to say anything," he replied gently. "But Dr. Fields and Dr. Kramer would like to ask you some questions about the exercises you've been doing with Valentina." To Marina's surprise, the questions were not accusatory, but genuinely curious. Dr. Kramer, in particular, seemed impressed with the intuitive approach Marina had developed. With no complete formal training, "You identified and applied techniques that many experienced physical therapists would overlook," the neurologist commented. "Your clinical instinct is remarkable." At the end of the meeting, Dr. Fields stood up with a grave expression. "Mr. Thompson, based on the evidence presented in Miss Miller's testimony, I will immediately begin an ethics investigation into Dr. Patricia Evans. Falsifying medical results and deliberately putting a patient at risk are egregious violations of the Code of Conduct." When everyone else had left, Marina was finally alone with Daniel. Her heart was still racing as she tried to process everything that had happened. "I don't understand," she said finally. "How did you find out?" Daniel smiled faintly. "I always suspected something was wrong. Susan changed after Clara died. She became possessive, controlling. But I was so lost in my own grief that I let it slide." He paused. "When you arrived and Valentina started to improve, I noticed how negatively Susan reacted. I decided to install cameras. I never imagined I'd uncover something this serious. And now, what happens now?" "Now," Daniel came closer, taking her hands in his. "Now Susan and Dr. Evans will be dismissed immediately. Valentina will continue her exercises with you, under the supervision of Dr. Kramer, who is genuinely impressed with your work." Marina nodded, relieved to know she could continue helping Valentina, but there was another, much more personal, issue hanging between them. "And what about us?" she finally asked, gathering her courage. "What happened last night was real," Daniel finished, his voice soft but firm. "At least for me. But I understand if you want to keep our relationship strictly professional. I don't want you to feel pressured in any way." Marina looked into his eyes, seeing not the powerful millionaire, but the vulnerable man who had found hope again through his daughter. "I don't know if this can work," she admitted honestly. "We're from such different worlds." "Worlds can meet," he replied, gently caressing her face, "if there's enough courage to cross the borders." When they returned to the mansion, they found Valentina in the living room, anxious and worried. Upon seeing Marina, her face lit up. "Auntie Marie, you're back. Susan said you were gone for good." Marina hugged the girl tightly. "Never without saying goodbye to you, little one. Never." Daniel knelt beside his daughter. "Valentina, I have some important news. Susan won't be working with us anymore. Neither will Dr. Evans." The girl's eyes widened. "Why?" "Because they weren't being honest. And in our family, honesty is very important." He looked at Marina, a look full of promise, just like trust and love. That night, as Valentina slept, Daniel and Marina walked again to the bench under the magnolia tree. The future was still uncertain. full of challenges and prejudices to be faced. But something had fundamentally changed in that mansion that had once seemed so cold and empty. There was hope again. There was healing. And, perhaps most importantly, there was the possibility of a new beginning for them all. 3 months had passed since the revelation that changed everything in the Thompson mansion. Autumn arrived with its golden colors, painting the garden where Valentina now practiced her steps daily. The transformation was visible not only in the girl, who could now walk short distances with just a light cane, but in the entire atmosphere of the house. Susan's absence had brought a lightness that no one had realized was missing. Zelia, the cook, had temporarily taken over coordinating the household staff, bringing her motherly warmth to every corner of the mansion. Laughter, once rare, now echoed through the halls. Marina divided her time between college, where she excelled as one of the top students, the physical therapy sessions with Valentina, now supervised every 2 weeks by Dr. Kramer, and caring for her mother, whom Daniel had insisted on moving to a comfortable apartment near the mansion. "It's not charity," he had explained when Marina tried to refuse. "It's gratitude and practicality. You need to be close to your mother, and I need you close to Valentina. It's a solution that benefits everyone." Their relationship evolved slowly, with caution and respect. Daniel understood Marina's hesitations, her fear of being seen as an opportunist, her concern about what Valentina would think. So they kept things discreet, first building a solid foundation of trust and companionship. That Saturday afternoon, while Valentina proudly showed off her progress to her paternal grandmother who had come to visit, Daniel found Marina in the library, studying for her exams. "Am I interrupting?" he asked, knocking gently on the open door. Marina looked up from her books, smiling. "A break would be welcome. My brain is about to explode with so many medical terms." Daniel sat across from her, looking at the meticulous notes spread across the table. "You're amazing, you know that. Full-time college, taking care of Valentina. Your mother. I don't know how you do it." "I have good reasons to work hard," she replied, blushing slightly under his admiring gaze. Daniel hesitated, then pulled an envelope from his pocket. "I have some news. I don't know if it's good or bad, depends on how you look at it." Marina felt a knot in her stomach. "What happened?" "I got a call from the State Medical Board. The case against Dr. Evans is closed. She's permanently lost her medical license." "My God," Marina murmured. Despite everything the doctor had done, it was a severe punishment. "And Susan, she's being investigated for fraud. Apparently, it wasn't the first time she manipulated situations for her own benefit," Daniel sighed. "We discovered she'd been skimming money from the household account for years, small amounts that weren't missed, but they added up." Marina shook her head, saddened. "It's hard to understand how someone can betray the trust of those who took them in. The saddest part is that I really trusted her. After Clara died, Susan was a pillar of stability for Valentina." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Marina now recognized as a sign of his frustration. "How could I have been so blind?" "You were grieving," Marina replied softly. "And sometimes the people who most need to control others are the very ones who get close to those who are vulnerable." Daniel looked at her with admiration. This ability to understand human complexities without judgment was one of the many qualities that attracted him to Marina. "There's one more thing," he said, pushing the envelope towards her. "Dr. Kramer sent this. It's an invitation for you to present Valentina's case at an international symposium on neurological rehabilitation." Marina's eyes widened, and she took the envelope with trembling hands. I don't even know what to say. I'm just a student who achieved what renowned specialists considered impossible." Daniel smiled. "Helen, Dr. Kramer, said that your intuitive method with Valentina deserves to be studied and shared. It could help other children." Tears welled in Marina's eyes. To think that her experience could benefit other families, other children like Valentina, was deeply moving. "Thank you for this," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "For believing in me when no one else did. You did the same for my daughter," he replied simply. Their gazes met, and in that moment, the barriers Marina still held up began to crumble. It wasn't just gratitude she saw in Daniel's eyes. It was something deeper, more genuine. "Daddy, Auntie Mari," Valentina's voice interrupted the moment. The girl entered the library, leaning on her colorful cane, followed by her grandmother. "And Grandma wants to take us for ice cream. Can we go, please?" Daniel laughed, standing up. "Of course we can, Princess. Marina, are you coming with us?" Mrs. Thompson, an elegant woman in her 60s, smiled gently at Marina. Contrary to what the young woman had feared, Daniel's mother had welcomed her with genuine gratitude from their very first meeting. "I insist you come, dear," the older woman said. "Valentina won't stop talking about how you taught her to feel her toes dancing, whatever that means." Marina smiled, placing the precious envelope in her bag. "It's a visualization technique we developed together. It helps with neural reconnection." "Well, it's working wonderfully," Mrs. Thompson replied, watching her granddaughter with pride. "I never thought I would see her walk again." The trip for ice cream turned into an afternoon of simple joy. Valentina, sitting between her father and Marina, chattered excitedly about her plans to ride a bike again when my legs get strong like Auntie Marie's. Mrs. Thompson observed the interaction between her son, her granddaughter, and the young physical therapist with sharp eyes. There was a dynamic there that went beyond a professional relationship, a connection that reminded her of Daniel's early days with Clara. "You brought life back to this family," she commented discreetly to Marina while Daniel was paying the bill. "Not just for Valentina, but for my son as well." Marina blushed intensely. "I just did my job, Mrs. Thompson." "Oh, my dear, we both know it was much more than that." The older woman smiled wisely. "And I want you to know you have my blessing, whatever is blossoming between you two." That night, after Valentina had fallen asleep, Daniel invited Marina for dinner on the terrace. The table was elegantly set for two, with candles and flowers. It was the first time he had made such an explicitly romantic gesture. "Is this an official date?" Marina asked, half joking, half serious, as he pulled out her chair. "If you'll accept it as one," Daniel replied, pouring wine into their glasses. "I thought it was time we made it clear what we're building here." Marina felt her heart speed up. And what are we building, Daniel?" He looked at her intently in the candlelight. "A family, if you'll have it." The declaration, so direct and sincere, left Marina speechless for a moment. "I know it soon," he continued. "I know there are many obstacles. The age difference, the social background, what people will say. But over the past few months, I've realized that none of that matters when you find someone who makes you feel alive again." Marina took a deep breath, gathering the courage to voice her own fears. "I'm afraid I don't belong in your world, Daniel, that I'll never fit in, that one day you'll realize you made a mistake. My world is wherever Valentina is, wherever you are now." He took her hand across the table. "The rest is just circumstance, Marina, money, status, last names. None of that saved my previous marriage from unhappiness. Clara and I loved each other, but we were unhappy together. We lived parallel lives, connected only by Valentina." It was the first time he had spoken so openly about his marriage. Marina listened in silence, finally understanding why Daniel had thrown himself so completely into his work, even before the accident. "What we have is different," he continued. "It's real. It's based on who we really are, not what we own or represent." Marina felt tears in her eyes. "I'm so afraid of disappointing you." "The only way you could disappoint me is by giving up before we even try." Daniel smiled, that smile that lit up his eyes in a way Marina adored. "Besides, Valentina would never forgive me if I let you get away. She's already planning what it will be like when you become my stepmom." Her words. Marina laughed, wiping away a tear. She said that. Last night, as I was tucking her in, she said she wanted you to be part of our family forever, not just the physical therapist. In that moment, under the stars, with the scent of the garden flowers surrounding them, Marina finally allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales could happen in real life. Not through magic or destiny, but through the hard work of determined hearts healing and learning to love again. Yes, she said finally, squeezing Daniel's hand. Let's build this family, together. The kiss that sealed that promise was witnessed only by the full moon and by a small figure in pajamas, secretly watching from her bedroom window with a smile that lit up the entire mansion. The grand ballroom of the majestic hotel was decorated with understated elegance for the International Symposium on Neurological Rehabilitation. Healthcare professionals from around the world mingled between booths and conference rooms, exchanging knowledge and experiences. Marina nervously adjusted the name tag on her navy blue blazer. Her name, followed by physical therapy student, guest presenter, seemed too surreal to be true. In a few minutes, she would present the case study that had revolutionized her life, an intuitive approach to the rehabilitation of incomplete spinal cord injuries in pediatric patients. Nervous? Daniel asked, approaching with 2 glasses of water. Marina accepted the glass with a tense smile. Terrified would be more accurate. There are renowned doctors and physical therapists in there. And I'm just a second-year student, a student who achieved what many of them considered impossible, Daniel reminded her, affectionately tucking a strand of hair that had escaped from Marina's elegant bun. Besides, you're not alone. As if to confirm his words, Valentina appeared, walking confidently with only a cane decorated with colorful stickers. At 9 years old, she radiated confidence and joy. Auntie Marie, doctor. Kramer said it's almost our turn, the girl exclaimed, referring to Dr. Helen Kramer, who had become a mentor to Marina and a key ally in Valentina's rehabilitation. Marina knelt down to the child's level. Remember what we agreed. You only come up when I call you, for the practical demonstration. Valentina nodded solemnly. I'm going to show everyone how I can walk now, and I'm going to tell them that you're the one who taught me, when nobody else believed. Marina felt her eyes well up. Valentina's progress over the last year had exceeded all expectations. While she still needed the cane for longer distances, she could walk on her own around the house, go up and down stairs with minimal support, and even take a few steps in the pool without any assistance. You're the real star today, Marina said, hugging her. I just followed what your body was trying to tell us. Doctor. Kramer appeared in the hallway, giving a discreet signal. It was time. Daniel squeezed Marina's hand, giving her strength. Go shine, we'll be in the front row. The auditorium was packed. Over 200 healthcare professionals awaited the presentation that had generated so much buzz in medical circles. A physical therapy student who had challenged established diagnoses and developed an innovative treatment protocol. When Marina walked onto the stage, her legs were trembling. But when she saw Daniel and Valentina in the front row, encouraging smiles on their faces, she found the strength she needed. Good morning, everyone, she began, her voice steadier than she expected. My name is Marina Miller, and I'm here to share a journey that began not with scientific certainties, but with something much more basic, the ability to listen. The lights dimmed, and on the screen behind her, the first image appeared, Valentina in her wheelchair, her gaze sad and distant, dated 18 months prior. This is Valentina Thompson, diagnosed with an incomplete spinal cord injury after a car accident. At 7, she was told she would never walk again. At 8, she told me she sometimes felt her toes tingling. No one had listened. For 40 minutes, Marina guided the audience through Valentina's rehabilitation journey, explaining each step of the process with technical precision, but also with humanity. She showed the exercises they developed, the obstacles they faced, the setbacks and breakthroughs. What we discovered, she explained, was that the traditional approach was ignoring subtle signs of neural recovery. By combining visualization techniques with specific proprioceptive stimuli, we were able to reactivate neural pathways that were dormant, not destroyed. When it was time for the practical demonstration, Marina called Valentina to the stage. A murmur went through the auditorium as the girl walked up the steps on her own, using only her colorful cane. "Valentina will now demonstrate the exercises we developed together," Marina announced, "and afterwards I'd like her to share with you, in her own words, what this journey has been like." The presentation ended with a standing ovation. Doctors and physical therapists crowded around the stage, eager to ask questions, to speak to Valentina, to better understand the miracle they had witnessed. Dr. Kramer, watching from the side of the stage, approached Marina with a proud smile. "You just changed the lives of many children today. You know that. I already have at least 10 colleagues who want to implement your protocol in their rehabilitation centers." Marina could hardly believe it. But we still need more studies, more cases to confirm. And they will come," the doctor assured her. "You opened a door that many considered closed. This is what medicine should always be about, the courage to question the establishment when evidence suggests another path." Later, at the symposium's closing dinner, Marina was still stunned by the reception of her presentation. 3 international rehabilitation centers had invited her for technical visits. A medical publisher wanted her to write a chapter for a book on innovative approaches in pediatric physical therapy. And the university where she studied had offered her a full scholarship so she could dedicate herself exclusively to research. "I think we need to celebrate," Daniel said, pouring champagne into her glass. Valentina, exhausted but radiant after her big day, had been taken to her hotel room by her grandmother, who had accompanied them on the trip. Marina looked at the man across from her, still finding it hard to believe the transformation her life had undergone in the past year. From cleaner to respected researcher, from lonely to part of a family. "I have something for you," Daniel said, taking a small velvet box from his pocket. Marina's heart sped up. "Daniel!" "It's not what you're thinking," he smiled, opening the box. Inside, there was no ring, but a delicate gold chain with a bird-shaped pendant. "Not yet. I know we need more time, that you want to finish your studies first. This is just a symbol." Marina touched the pendant, moved. "It's beautiful, but what does it symbolize?" "Freedom," he replied simply. "Because that's what you brought into our lives. You freed Valentina from her wheelchair. You freed me from guilt and isolation." He took the chain and gently placed it around her neck. "And I want you to know that, no matter what the future holds, your freedom will always be respected. Your dreams, your professional ambitions, all of that is part of who you are, and it's for who you are that I fell in love." Marina felt tears in her eyes. After a lifetime of struggle and sacrifice, of giving up her own dreams to care for others, she had finally found someone who saw her completely, who celebrated her strength instead of trying to diminish it. "I love you," she said simply. Words she had held back for so long, afraid they would make everything too real, too vulnerable. "I love you too," Daniel replied, "and Valentina does too, as you well know." Marina smiled, remembering how the girl now affectionately called her Mina, a middle ground between Mom and Marina that she had invented herself. "She asked me last night when we're going to make it official," Daniel confessed, laughing. "You said she wants to be the flower girl at our wedding." "And what did you tell her?" Marina asked, curious. "That some stories need time to be written correctly, that we're not in a hurry because we know we're on the right path." Marina nodded, grateful for his patience, for his respect for the space and time she needed. But one day, she left the sentence hanging. "One day," he agreed, raising his glass in a toast, "to our story, which is just beginning." Back home, life resumed its rhythm, now enriched by the new possibilities that were opening up. Marina divided her time between her studies, now focused on research, her care for Valentina, whose rehabilitation continued to progress, and her mother, who had become a beloved presence in the mansion, often cooking homemade meals with Zelia. The story of the cleaner who defied medicine had spread, first in medical circles, then in the media. Marina received invitations for interviews, lectures, and consultations. Daniel supported her every step of the way, proud to see her shine on her own merits. One Sunday afternoon, while the family relaxed in the garden, Daniel reading a book, Marina studying for her final exams, Valentina playing with her new puppy, a birthday gift. The girl suddenly dropped the ball she was playing with and walked determinedly towards them. "I have something important to say," she announced seriously. Daniel and Marina exchanged intrigued glances. "What is it, Princess?" Daniel asked, putting his book aside. Valentina took a deep breath, like someone preparing for a big speech. "I want Auntie Marie to be my real mom, not just my Mina, a real mom." Marina felt her heart stop for a moment. "I know my mommy is in heaven," the girl continued, "and that she will always be my mom. But I think she would be happy if I had another mom here on earth, someone who loves me and takes care of me like Auntie Marie does." Daniel pulled his daughter onto his lap, emotional. "Valentina, that's a very big deal. Are you sure?" The girl nodded with conviction. "Absolutely. I've thought about it a lot, and I've also already picked out the dress I want to wear to the wedding." Marina and Daniel couldn't help but laugh at the child's practicality. "Well," Daniel said, looking at Marina with love in his eyes, "I guess that's up to Auntie Marie, isn't it?" All the doubts, all the fears Marina still carried seemed to dissipate before the hopeful gaze of the child who had transformed her life as much as she had transformed hers. "Nothing would make me happier," she replied, opening her arms to welcome Valentina into a tight hug. In that moment, under the golden afternoon sun, three hearts that had known pain, loss, and abandonment beat in perfect harmony, united not by fate or convenience, but by the conscious choice to build a new path together. The journey that had begun with a cleaner holding a girl in a wheelchair, helping her take her first steps, had blossomed into something much greater, a lesson about believing when everyone else doubts, about listening when no one else hears, and about how love, in its infinite forms, remains the most powerful force for transformation.